Some objects are more than just wood and metal. Some of them seem to hold on to things, memories, feelings, and sometimes a rage so powerful it refuses to die. Most things are just silent witnesses to our lives. But every once in a while an object is given a voice that screams a warning of death. This is the story of one of those objects. It's a piece of beautiful furniture, born from a truly horrific act of injustice that would spend over 100 years demanding a price in blood from anyone who dared to own it. This is the story of the Conjure chest, a beautiful piece of furniture meant to hold the clothes of a baby that instead became a container for a curse sealed with owl's blood and a body count that some say climbed to 18 souls. Our story starts in the American South, in Kentucky, sometime around the 1830s. It's a time and place built on the brutal foundation of slavery, on a plantation owned by a man that the legend calls Jacob Cooley, though some family versions of the story name him Jeremiah Graham. There was an enslaved man known as Remus, a master carpenter. His owner was known to be a particularly cruel man, and when his wife was expecting their first child, he ordered Remus to build a special chest for the baby's nursery. Remus poured all of his incredible skill into the project, crafting a gorgeous mahogany chest. By any standard, it was a work of art. But Jacob Cooley, for reasons that history never bothered to record, was enraged when he saw it. What he did next was an act of shocking violence. Cooley beat Remus so brutally that the craftsman died from his injuries. For a man like Cooley, this was just a casual display of his absolute power. He had no idea that by killing the man who made the chest, he had just signed a death warrant for his own family. Remus was dead, but the other enslaved people on the plantation would not let his murder go unanswered. They sought revenge not with weapons, which they couldn't use, but with something their master couldn't possibly understand: Conjure. In the dead of night, the other enslaved people gathered in secret. Led by a conjure man, a spiritual leader who practiced the folk magic of his African ancestors, they planned their supernatural payback. They crept into the workshop where the chest, the very object that had cost Remus his life, was sitting. There, they performed a dark and powerful ritual. According to the legend, the conjure man sprinkled dried owl's blood into one of the drawers, a potent ingredient in folk magic, and chanted an ancient curse of vengeance. The curse was woven into the very wood of the chest. Anyone who dared place their belongings inside would meet with misfortune and a swift, often violent, death. The beautiful chest, made to welcome a new life, was now a vessel of death. It was a Trojan horse, sitting silently in the nursery, waiting. The trap was set. The curse was about to claim its first victim. The curse didn't take long to act. Soon after Jacob Cooley's son was born, the baby's clothes were put in the chest. Within days, the infant died. But this was just the start. The grief-stricken Cooley, still clueless about the chest's real nature, gave it to his twin brother, Jonathan. Jonathan's son used the chest, and on his 21st birthday, he was stabbed to death. The chest was passed from one relative to the next, and everywhere it went, death followed. It was given as a wedding gift. The bride soon fell ill and died, and the groom was killed in a freak accident. Over the decades, the death toll kept climbing. The legend, passed down through the family, chronicles a terrifying list of victims, though many details come from oral tradition rather than public records. A woman named Eliza Gregory reportedly took her own life in 1915 after coming into possession of the chest. Her granddaughter, Virginia Carey Hudson Cleveland, inherited it next. Virginia initially dismissed the whispers about a curse and placed her first child's clothes in its drawers. The baby was born prematurely and died that same day, August 8, 1915. Her second daughter, Anne, whose clothes were also kept in the chest, was struck with polio and suffered its effects for the rest of her life. The curse seemed to reach out to anyone who came close. Stella Stonecipher supposedly put her wedding clothes in the chest in 1895 and was dead within 2 years. A baby named Chester, whose clothes were stored inside in 1901, died at only 2 weeks old. Even a neighbor, Herbert Sonny Moore Jr., borrowed the chest in 1946 to store hunting clothes and was killed shortly after in a gun accident. The body count connected to the chest had grown to at least 16 people, not including Remus himself. For Virginia Carey Hudson, the pattern was too horrifying to ignore any longer. She knew she was living with a serial killer made of wood and rage, and she had to do something before it claimed another member of her family. Desperate, Virginia turned to a woman named Sally, an African-American woman who worked for her family and was said to know about Conjure. Virginia told her the whole horrifying story, the century of deaths that haunted her family. Sally listened, and she knew that breaking a curse this old and powerful would take an equally powerful ritual. The instructions she gave were strange and very specific. First, a dead owl had to be brought to Virginia, unasked for, by a friend. Then, leaves from a willow tree, also planted by a friend, had to be boiled all day long in sight of the dead owl. Finally, the liquid from the leaves had to be put in a jug and buried under a flowering bush, with the handle facing east. But there was one final, chilling catch. Sally warned that for the ritual to work, the curse would demand one last price. Either she or Virginia would die before the last leaves fell from that bush in autumn. It was a terrifying choice, but Virginia felt she had no other. In a bizarre twist, a friend soon showed up at Virginia's house, holding a dead owl he had found. The first condition was met. Virginia did exactly as she was told, boiling the willow leaves and burying the jug. Then, they waited. That September, Sally passed away. Her death was seen as the final sacrifice, the 17th victim, whose life finally satisfied the chest's thirst for revenge. Do you think a curse can be physically broken by a ritual like that? Or does that kind of dark energy just go dormant, waiting for another chance? The story of the Conjure chest really makes you wonder how much power our beliefs and intentions have over the physical world. If you find these chronicles of cursed objects as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the world's most haunted artifacts. After the curse was supposedly broken, Virginia Carey Hudson made sure no one would be tempted to test it again. She placed owl feathers from the ritual inside the top drawer as a talisman to keep away the curse. The chest was never used again. In 1976, her daughter, Virginia Carey Hudson Maine, donated the artifact to the Kentucky Historical Society. She didn't want to just throw it away, scared that some unsuspecting person might find it and start the cycle all over again. She felt it needed to be preserved, but in a place where it could do no more harm. Today, the Conjure chest is in the collection of the museum in Frankfort, Kentucky. While it has been on display before, it's often kept in storage, and staff are careful to never place anything inside its drawers. The note detailing the family's story and the owl feathers remain, a permanent reminder of its bloody history and the ritual performed to end it. The story of the chest is a powerful piece of American folklore, born from the absolute horror of slavery. It's a chilling reminder that some wounds leave a scar not just on history, but on the very objects that witnessed them. Whether you believe it was a genuine supernatural curse or a century of tragic coincidence, the legacy of the Conjure chest is a dark warning that some things are best left alone.